The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Greetings, boarders, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for games you play on your table and on your television. You can think of us as the April showers and May flowers of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network and also thrilled to be part of the Dice Tower Network as well. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the guy who blooms because of the rain. Josh, how are you doing this fine evening?
I am doing just swell.
You have today off from work.
I did have today off. Today was Patriots Day here in Massachusetts, where we have the Boston Marathon, and we're all patriotic and stuff.
I wonder why you guys get a Patriots Day and I don't get a Patriots Day. Are we just not patriotic enough in the middle of the country?
I did find out Maine also has today, but Maine used to be part of Massachusetts, so apparently that's why it is also getting the same holidays we get of.
Gotcha. That is interesting that there's just like a state holiday, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take it.
I'm not certain that Iowa has any that are just specific to the state.
We went to the grocery store today. It was mobbed. I'm like, I thought that, why is everyone here? It's Monday.
So, yeah, I usually grocery shop on Sundays. Come on, people. Interesting. This show's going to be a little interesting tonight. We already recorded the topic of the show, Inside Baseball, and we're going to edit that in later. But this has put me just in an odd mood because, dear listener, Josh and I were talking about Game of Thrones before we started recording tonight.
No spoilers, don't worry.
No, yeah, we're not going to spoil anything, but now all I really want to do... I know. Now all I want to do, though, is talk about Game of Thrones. We're not going to, obviously, but I really want to.
I mean, Lucas and I talked about Game of Thrones video PC games on the PSVG Prime yesterday.
Oh, that's exciting. I haven't had a chance to listen yet.
Well, I mean, it only came out this morning.
I know.
So no big deal, Kyle.
Well, some of us had to work today, Josh.
Oh, you know what? Raising a child is a lot of work, too. So I worked.
Understandable. It is kind of interesting to think about, though, right? That, Game of Thrones, cultural... entertainment touchstone coming to an end in a few weeks here. Avengers Endgame, a couple weeks from that, which granted, there's going to be more Marvel movies moving forward, but kind of like the end of like that really first big, phase of like, or the first three phases of that, kind of the end of that kind of real, that making a big, awesome superhero movie group. And I mean, it's not super soon, but then also, you got that Star Wars trailer and that the Skywalker saga coming to an end. There's a lot of big cultural things coming to an end this year.
That was a good trailer.
That was a good trailer. I really enjoyed that trailer a lot.
Yeah. Also, I'm still mad at you for now giving me the nickname Mayflowers. That I know that's going to catch on in Discord.
What? I didn't say your name was Mayflowers. I just said
it's going to come up.
No, nobody was going to think anything of it until you just said something. So you have no one to blame but yourself.
Maybe I ruined it for myself.
I think you did. I think you did. So before we get too far into the show itself, or, even start the show itself. So the episode 9 trailer, very good, correct?
Very good. I've watched it multiple times. I don't usually do that for trailers.
Right. I have as well. I have shown it to people who don't care anything about Star Wars. Even though I know they don't care, I'm like, hey, you should watch this. And they probably still don't care about Star Wars, but I was really excited to show it to them. But on the other hand, Josh, what might be an unpopular opinion, that Star Wars video game trailer, I wasn't a huge fan.
Maybe if they picked a different week to come out when good things hadn't come out, and maybe there would be no competition.
And I struggle with this because I've been trying very hard to not... I want people to be excited about things and like things, and I don't want to rain on their parade. I'm genuinely trying to be better about that. I just I was left wanting more from that trailer.
I hear you. go watch. Did you watch The Mandalorian?
I've not watched the Mandalorian trailer yet,
Bootleg
unfortunately.
trailer. You should watch that. It looks very good.
Very cool. All right. Well, hey, most of our show this week is just going to be Josh and I, but we do have a very special guest for our topic of the show. Peter McPherson, designer of the upcoming board game Tiny Towns from AEG, will be joining us. This is a pretty hotly anticipated game, so we were really excited to get the chance to sit down with him and talk about it and his whole chat on his whole perspective on a city building genre that he's definitely put some unique twists on. And I think that whether you are a hardcore hobby board gamer or just looking to get into the hobby, I think Tiny Towns has something to offer everyone. So be looking for that in our topic of the show. It was like I kind of alluded to, we already recorded the interview, but I do think it was a pretty great sit down with him, and he had some really interesting things to share. But before we get to that, we have the typical rigmarole to get through. So thank you so much for joining us this week. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter, or check out all the awesome things Josh posts over on the Instagram, also Board with VG. We are a proud part of the PSVG network, and PSVG is on Patreon. We are thrilled with the support you have given us there thus far, and if you'd like to monetarily support what we do, you can find us there at patreon.com/PSVG. But the most important thing is that you listen and maybe just share our podcast with someone who you think might appreciate it as well. We're also a member of the Dice Tower Podcast Network. So if you enjoy our conversations about board games and would like to dive deeper into that world, we encourage you to check out the Dice Tower Podcast, as well as all the other members of the network. No matter what type of board games you enjoy, there's a podcast on the network that's going to be right for you. So enough of the housekeeping, enough of the rigmarole, enough talking about all those other things. Josh, what have you been playing on your tabletop, sir?
Well, I'll tell you how it started. So
I look forward to hearing this.
We played Everdell 2 weeks ago now.
Yes.
We had such a great time. We had said like, all right, next week we'll sit down, we'll play a game, and then we'll play another game of Everdell afterwards. That was like the original plan. So we sat down to play Call to Adventure, which is a game that I just picked up by Brother Wise Games that I missed the Kickstarter. So I was excited when my FLGS got it. So I went down immediately and bought it when I saw that they got it in. So we sat down, and as we typically do, I start reading the instructions and the rules, and we set up the game on the table. And I just happened to glance up at my wife as I'm reading I'm halfway through like the rule book, and I just know that it's not meant to be. So I said,
to clarify,
are you not into this?
I was saying to clarify, were you certain it wasn't going to happen because you were reading the rules and it wasn't jiving with her, or just was it the look of the game as she was looking down at everything you had set up on the table? What was it that gave you the indication this wasn't going to happen?
I mean, I could tell she was not interested in the gameplay. It's what the gameplay would be, maybe not even the theme. So we talked a little bit about it, and she was like, I'd just rather you play with someone else first. I don't really quite get it. I said, it's okay. I'm having some questions too. I had some questions. The rule book isn't very specific on a couple things. So, her questions were valid in my mind. Like, I got why she was questioning those things, which is fine. So, said, all right, I said, you go pick a game. I'm frustrated. Josh said, you go pick a game. I asked you to pick a game. You didn't pick one, so go pick one. So I cleaned it up. She picked, and she came in and she picked Arboretum, so our deluxe edition from Renegade Games. It has like the foil cards. You can see pictures on our Instagram.
It is beautiful.
It's a beautiful game, but if you're playing in a well-lit room, those cards are very hard to look at.
It is beautiful.
It definitely has a glare issue. But I mean, that's what you have to pay. That's the price you pay for beauty, Kyle.
Apparently.
It's hard to look at sometimes. So Arboretum is, I wouldn't call it a set collection game, but it definitely has things similar to a set collection game. The player counts vary how many cards you're divvying out, but essentially you're playing with a deck of cards and you're playing through the deck of cards. What you're doing is, if you know Seven Wonders, you know the card drafting system. So you start with 11 cards in your hand. You pick a card, you put it face down, you pass the deck to the left. No, that's wrong. I'm thinking of the other game I played.
You're thinking of Doxy Dash, aren't you?
Wow. Well, now it's a longer day. So now I'm going to have to look at Arboretum, which I have right next to me. So no big deal. So when you play Arboretum for 2 players, you're going to take, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 different types of trees. You take 6 sets out from the game for 2 players. Obviously more for other players.
So quick question for you.
Yeah.
To interrupt, sorry.
That's okay.
How did you decide which trees you were going to keep and which ones you got rid of?
I let her do that, actually.
Okay.
And I think she just picked based on the one she liked.
That's what I did too when I played it. I was like, this one looks pretty. I like this tree. Let's pick this one.
Yeah, so what you're going to do is you're going to shuffle up all the cards after you've picked your 6. And then you're going to deal 7 cards to each player face down as the starting hand. And then there will be a draw pile, and you have your own discard pile. So when you play the game, it's pretty interesting. You start by first drawing 2 cards immediately to your hand. So you're adding those 2 cards to your hand. Then you're going to play 1 card to your Arboretum, which is the table in front of you. And then you're going to discard a card. So you'll always have 7 cards in your hand. You can only play a card orthogonally, so you cannot play any cards diagonally, but what you're doing is each of these tree sets have numbers 1 through 8 for each set. And as you play, the goal is there's a lot of different ways to score points, but one of the ways to score points is to have a run. So if you can get numbers going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it would be very hard to get 1 through 8 of one tree. But what's cool about the game is you can also, I would say, commingle with trees as long as you're ending back with the same tree. So if I had, I'm going to look at the name so I can use an example. If I had a blue spruce, if I had a 1 and a 2 of a blue spruce, and then 3, 4, 5 cherry blossom, as long as I get back to 6 on the blue spruce, I'm going to score all of those as one run at the end of the game, which is, well, potentially. Also, what is something that people, the first time you play this game, you might forget very easily, is that you need to win the right to score your trees. And to win the right, not only do you have to still have that type of tree in your hand by the end of the game, but you have to have a higher number than your opponent does. So if my wife has a 7 blue spruce and I only have a 6, I don't score any of my blue spruce points. So there's a pretty interesting element to scoring in this game.
And there's the twist too with the 8.
The 8 is lower than the 1.
Right. So if you have the 8 and they have the 1, then your 8's a 0.
Yeah, you have to remember that too. That's tricky. So yeah, if you have an 8, you're not safe necessarily at all, especially if you don't see that 1 on the board anywhere or in someone's discard pile, you could be in trouble. So yes, overall, I did enjoy the game. It started off slow for me. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it at the beginning. But once we got playing, and it's pretty quick, it plays like 20 minutes, I would say. Maybe a little bit longer because for our first game. But yeah, I look forward to playing it again, and at 4 players, I think is the maximum. I look forward to doing that. And then Doxy Dash, the game I inadvertently started telling you about. Doxy Dash is a game we kickstarted because my wife used to own a dachshund. She's a big dog person, so it seemed to make sense. Doxy Dash is an interesting game. It is 8-bit pixel art, which is, unique. And what you do when you start the game is you pick a hero, and your hero is a dog. There's, I believe, 8 different dog heroes you can choose. They each have a special ability that you'll play during the game. And then this is that game where you deal a hand to each player. It's 11 cards. And in your hand, you have all these different things. There's 2 quick reference sheets, which is very important. I'm glad when games include those. But also each card tells you kind of what they do on them as well. And what you do is it's similar to Sushi Go. If you've played Sushi Go, you have things that you fight against, like vacuums, old ladies, and not a beaver, not a weasel,
a muskrat, badger. Okay,
and a badger. And what you need to do for the bad ones, is you need to use a dash, which is like an attack, and you can combine it with other dashes, or it's like a lost puppy card in there. You can include the cards tell you how to defeat them, and you get lots of points for defeating them. But if you do not defeat them, you lose the points indicated on the card. And when you play a card in front of you face down. You pass your hand to the other player. You reveal your cards at the same time. They stay in front of you until the scoring phase at the end of the round. You also have like kibble, which is a point, water, which is a point, but kibble and water together is 5 points. You have carpets and floors; those are surfaces. You add poo to them to gain more points. So the more poos on the carpet, the more points you get, up to a maximum of 3 poos. There are dashes for attacking. There are like playtime cards, which give you extra points. It's a very cute little game. What you get to do is, after the round is done, you can discard as many cards as you want from in front of you, but you have to draw that many and immediately play them. So it's a risk-reward situation. So you could get all villains, all bad guy cards, and just lose a bunch of points. There's a card called Toy. If you play the Toy card, the second you play it, you draw and play 2 cards immediately. So that can happen during the game. It can happen if you're discarding cards to pick up more. And then the play continues until someone has reached or surpassed 100 points. The points add up pretty quickly. It doesn't come with score sheets, which I think is something that should have been included. So we just use pad and paper. But if you can grab this game locally for like $20, I think it's fun, quick as well. As about a 20-minute game. And it's cute. If you like dogs, it's good for a dog person.
So it seems to be that there's a lot of, I don't want to say filler, but kind of like filler style games like this, right? You mentioned Sushi Go.
Yeah.
Lighter games that play quickly with, 2 to 6-ish players. Do you like this enough that you'd recommend it over games like Sushi Go? Or where does this fit in with you in comparison to some of those other games in that category?
I mean, the theme needs to be important to you.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the only way I'd pick it over Sushi Go.
Okay.
But it's nice to have options, is what I would say. So I don't do bar trivia like I used to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're someone who goes out and does like bar trivia, or even goes to a brewery that has like tables set up like this Sushi Go, these are great games for that kind of environment, or for filler games like in between heavy games. But no, I mean, I would say it's on par with Sushi Go, but I think Sushi Go's production is better. So if I had to pick, between the two, I'd still pick Sushi Go just for quality.
Right. So Splig has been, I think it was Splig who was talking to us on Twitter, right, about looking for games that were maybe a little easier for people to play at game, in game groups or at a game night, because they have folks who even Villainous can be a bit of a challenge. And I think Villainous is actually more complicated than it probably looks like it to be. I don't think Villainous is an easy game necessarily. Would you recommend Doxy Dash as a game that would fit into that as a easier game to teach people for maybe folks who aren't as big of gamers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely has a sense of humor about it too. So you need to have a little bit of that with your game group. But yeah, I mean, the only problem is actually, you know what? It's 2 to 6 players, so it's actually perfect for a filler game. And maybe this will be an Easter game. Maybe I'll bring this to Easter and see how that plays out. But yeah, so 2 to 6 players, ages 6+. It's quick. It's probably quicker than Sushi Go. So yeah, I would say if you find it, if you're looking around at the store for a quick, easy game to play, yeah, I would say I recommend Doxy Dash for sure.
Excellent. Good to hear. Anything else you've been playing on your tabletop, sir?
No, unfortunately not. And my Gloomhaven game that I just got postponed. So now I'm more bummed.
Hey, you played Keyforge Fridays, though, didn't you?
I did play Keyforge Friday. I just assume that people have heard enough about Keyforge.
Well, but how did you do? Were you victorious?
Oh, I won both of my games.
Nice work.
Which is rare.
Very well done. Very well indeed.
Thanks. I'm still enjoying it. It's still fun. I'm just waiting for that new set to come out. Honestly, I'm not feeling burnt out by it, but the new game comes with better components. So I'm kind of just waiting for better stun counters because we're just they really didn't do a great job releasing that with the proper things to play with. So I'm looking forward to the new stuff.
Gotcha. Hey, so one thing I want to talk about really briefly, and I know this isn't a news week, but obviously we just recently had PAX East and they had, all the Borderlands 3 stuff there. One thing that happened there too was the folks over at Wizards of the Coast had a little press conference presentation thing where they started announcing cards from their next set. And their next set is called War of the Spark, I believe. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, there's a heavy emphasis on planeswalkers in this set. And as someone who played a lot of Magic back in the day, I immediately got a little interested because planeswalkers were awesome, right? That was like building decks around those and having those in play. Like they always felt cool. Going to releases and cracking one in your sealed pool or getting past one in a draft was always a really exciting moment. So they're building this new set, all focused on planeswalkers, and there's some ridiculous, there's 27 planeswalkers or something ridiculous in this set as far as the number goes. And these always used to be mythic rares, like they were tough to get. It was this really cool, awesome thing. Well, now they're trying to open that up, make planeswalkers a little bit, more viable, see them more often, let more people play with them, which I think is cool. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the game goes. They revealed a new card today for Magic the Gathering, today or yesterday, one of the two. If you're into Magic lore, you know that one of the big bads, or the big bad, depending on how you look at it, is Nicol Bolas. And they released his Planeswalker card today, or gave the preview of it. So here's the thing that's really cool. All of these Planeswalkers now have loyalty abilities, where it used to be that you would play this Planeswalker and you'd have to activate the ability on the card. It would either give loyalty points or take loyalty points away from the Planeswalker, and that was kind of their life total as well. Well, all these characters now have basic passive abilities or loyalty abilities that passively just happen all the time that they're in. So you don't have to activate them to make them happen. They're not an activated ability anymore. So Nicol Bolas's loyalty ability is that he has all loyalty abilities of all other planeswalkers on the battlefield.
Wow.
So literally, you're making a set all about having people play planeswalkers, and then here's this dude who comes out for blue, triple black, and a red, which is 5 mana, and it's a complicated mana selection, a nice little Grixis selection. But he could just do everything. And then his abilities are just bonkers, right? His +1, so he has 4 loyalty counters. So if you want to add a 5th one, his ability is you draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. So his better ability is you get a card and they lose a card. Like its immediate card advantage is his good. Like usually for card advantage, it hurts you some way. But right away, it's like, we're going to make you better and it's going to hurt your opponent. His -3 ability, so he comes in at 4 again if you wanted to put him to 1, is destroy target creature or planeswalker. Now, as a 5 mana removal spell, that's pretty bad, but sometimes getting rid of planeswalkers is hard. So not maybe the best ability, but you're like, okay, he comes in and has all of these abilities of all these other planeswalkers. I know how to get around this. I just won't play planeswalkers. Here's this set, all focused on planeswalkers. Here's this really scary card in it. I'm just not going to play any planeswalkers, right? His -8 ability. Each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalker loses the game. That's
that
it.
Doesn't seem fair.
Now, I know that in general, cards like this come out and they seem really overpowered and they seem really ridiculous. And everyone kind of gets up in arms about them in good and bad ways. And usually they're totally fine or they're impossible to get that because you'd have to get on it survive 4 turns, and then you'd have to pop it to kill him. But if you popped it to kill him, then you wouldn't have one either. So you can't really do that unless you have another Planeswalker out. So, I mean, he's going to be on the field for at least 5 turns before he can even do this ability. And realistically, if you're not playing him until turn 5, unless you have some mana accelerant, you're already on turn 10 of a game. That's a long time. Like, that's a really long time for that to happen. But my goodness, how cool and fun is that? This is the kind of stuff that made me used to really want to play Magic, and now this is making me really want to play Magic again because this is ridiculously bonkers cool.
It's just going to be banned, so you won't even be able to play it.
I know. And I know it's not the news week, but I just saw that and I got really excited about it. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit because we don't talk about Magic all that often on this show for how big of a thing it is. That's for sure.
Correct.
All right. So on my tabletop, honestly, I've just been playing more Century Golem Edition. Josh,
I'd like to hear that.
You kind of got me addicted, man.
Good.
I look at other games and I'm like, I should learn that game. I have all these games in plastic I should really learn to play. Talk about them on the podcast. But what do I want to do? I want to play more Century Golem Edition. That's all I want to do. It's the only game I want to play right now. And I think part of it is because, not that it matters a ton, work's been super busy. And so when I come home and I have time to play games, I don't want to think too hard. I don't want to worry about learning a new game. I want to sit down, play a game that I know, play a game that I like, and a game that's really fun that doesn't take very long. And that game fits the bill so well. I hate to be like, oh, here's this game, this hotness, this new thing I'm playing. It's easily going to be one of my 5 favorite games of all time. Not lying, man. I think it might be.
Good.
I really like this game.
So now you got to pop on that playmat.
I know. I probably am going to have to. I just really wish they would make the other games in the series in this theme. And I'm really disappointed they haven't done that yet, or announced it at least. I mean, I put my name in the hat when Emerson was here. I thought that'd be enough.
Yeah, he was just waiting for you to push him over.
I know. So maybe I'll have to talk to the folks at Plan B Games and be like, look, I know I'm important. But I really want...
it's out of stock.
The playmat is? Yeah. Which doesn't surprise me, to be honest. But
it's so nice.
I think the more I play this game, the more I appreciate the elegance and simplicity of design here. The fact that you can just teach it to almost anyone, that they're going to understand very quickly how to play this game. And every time you play it, even though you're doing the same things, it still feels wildly different every time because of the cards that come up, what golems you can possibly purchase, what resources come available to buy on the track. Is it worth me throwing down 5 gems to get the card that allows me to get a purple every time because it's way on the right-hand side? And I really want to get those high-level purples every time, like play a purple and rest. Take my cards back, play a purple. There's so much you can do and how all the things come out and how all those things interact. It's really just, I really appreciate this design more and more and more. And are there games with more depth? Sure. Are there games that offer longer and more diverse strategy? Absolutely. Are there games that do, the conveyor belt mechanism better? Maybe. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but potentially. But is there a game that does all these things this well? I struggle to find one. I'm really, really liking this game. And part of me is now disappointed that it took me so long to get it. Because I feel about all these gaming sessions I've missed out on that I could be playing this really awesome game. And here I am playing, other games that are fun too. But man, I am really digging Century Golem Edition. I want to say I'm super surprised, but I guess I am. I'm really surprised at how much I'm enjoying this. I didn't think I was going to become quite as smitten. Even after I initially played it and we had Emerson on, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was fun, but that's pretty much the only game I've been wanting to play or play at all. And I need to force myself to do other stuff because I need to have other things to talk about on this show.
Oh, you could just talk about Keyforge every week like I do.
Well, one thing, though, that I am going to talk about more is I got a little gift in the mail from former guest and hopefully, again, future guest.
It seems like it's implied that he has to be.
William Herkovitz. And you may remember when William was on, we were talking about his list on Popular Mechanics of the top 50 best new board games that are on right now. And one game that was on that list that Josh and I could not wrap our heads around, neither one of us had ever heard of, was Human Punishment Social Deduction 2.0. And William was kind enough to send me his copy of that game. So I now have it at home. There's pictures of it on our Twitter account. And I will get that game played in the very near future. I am really terrified, though. Not all of my games are in pretty solid shape. Like, I've never really wrecked a game before, but now I'm very paranoid that I'm going to do something to this game since it's not mine.
Yeah, man, I would not want to be in your shoes.
I know. I'm really worried about it now, especially since it's a social deduction game that plays 4 to 16 people, that when I go play this, I'm going to have to entrust a whole lot of other people not to wreck this thing.
I mean, doesn't that just sound like fun? Like you go to play a game with Kyle, and he's like, no drinks at the table. This isn't my game. You be very careful. Also, I need to review this, so tell me what you're thinking.
We're all going to stand in a circle with no surfaces anywhere near us in case you spill something on one. You cannot eat any food for 30 minutes prior. You have to wash your hands before we start playing.
Just do yourself a favor, buy some card sleeves if they are universal, and just sleeve all the cards so people can't spill on them.
And that's probably what I will do, because it is, I think they are the typical size card. So that is good. One thing that's interesting about this game, though, is the weight of it on Board Game Geek is 2.6, which for a social deduction game is pretty darn high.
Yeah. But talking to William, I got the impression that it would have been higher, as well, though.
Right. No, absolutely. But
so I think that 2.6 is good. But you know what? When you said that, I realized I never really looked at the weight for social deduction games before. So I guess I didn't realize they were low.
I mean, my assumption is that they are, because I feel like so many of them are so straightforward. My usual go-to one, like I said, Deception Murder in Hong Kong, 1.59.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really low.
So, yeah. So I guess I don't know. And obviously he was a big fan of Secret Hitler. So I'm going to stall while I type in Secret Hitler with one hand.
Shouldn't I be stalling? Not you.
Secret Hitler 1.7.
Okay, so I guess I just didn't. It makes sense. I just never put that together.
Right. So that is a game, though, that I am very much looking forward to playing, especially with how highly he talked of it. So hopefully very, very, well, I shouldn't say very soon, in the coming weeks, look for more information about that, a review kind of about that game, and also hopefully William back on the podcast to talk about it more. Now that multiple of us will be able to talk about it. So awesome. So, hey, that's been all of it for our tabletop. Josh, what have you been playing on your television, sir?
Boy, I've been playing a bunch of things. I've been playing a little piecemeal. So I don't know if this deserves a story, but you're going to get one anyways. So I'm still playing the Division 2. I enjoy the game. I should say that now. I'm still enjoying the game, but I'm getting a little burnt out on the single player aspect of the game.
What level are you now?
Level 19, but there's a lot left to do. I've been pretty much doing every side mission, every encounter, just because that's kind of what I do when I play Ubisoft games, I guess. So I'm getting a little burned out from the missions are pretty repetitive if you're not doing main missions or side missions. So like the small, if you do like responding to question mark things or broadcasts or hostage things. So I don't know. I think I'm at the point now where I want to keep playing it, but only cooperatively.
Okay. So
I would love to keep playing and progress the story. But like with Kyle, like when we play, or when I eventually start playing it on the PC once I get my computer going, which should be soon. So that being said, I played the Division on the very same lines. I'm still playing Far Cry New Dawn, but I'm also getting very similar beats to exhaustion with the game. Far Cry New Dawn does not play like Far Cry 5 in the aspect of like story. It heavily revolves around base building, and I feel like I talked about this on PSVG Prime, so sorry if you're hearing this twice, but Board with Video Games fans more important. So when you have the main base where you're going out, you're doing something, and then you're coming back to upgrade prosperity, which is the name of the town, city, encampment, whatever you want to call it. So you're going back and forth, back and forth. It's fine, but it's getting stale. Even though I know the game is short, I'm not really feeling like I want to continue putting so much time into it. And I don't know if this is just like a me thing right now, which is very possible because, I mean, The Division 2, Far Cry New Dawn, both stellar games. Like they look incredible. I really like the play style. I'm just kind of getting a little tired of them, I guess. I'm still playing Breath of the Wild. Out of obligation more at this point than enjoyment. So I don't know when that fire is going to burn out, but I'm going to keep giving it some more chances. I'm not enjoying it. It's just hitting me in that it's reminding me why I don't like open world games, and that's fine. Like, it doesn't need to be for everybody, but I want to give it a fair shot before I cast it out of my life forever, like I so easily did 2 years ago. So after those things, what did I do? I sat down today. I had a few hours once the baby went to take his nap, and I said, I don't know what I want to play right now. I wanted to play Kingdom Hearts 3 with my wife, but she's like, I don't think we have enough time to start it now. So I said, okay, we'll start it at nighttime, not during a nap time. So we'll do it at like 8 o'clock some night, which will be nice because I'm home all week at night.
One thing to say really quick about Kingdom Hearts 3. So my wife obviously played the heck out of that game. It's pretty close to getting the platinum in it. Hasn't quite gotten it. After she had put a ton of hours in it, she decided to take a break for a while and hasn't totally gone back to it. But there was one time came downstairs, she was doing stuff and a cutscene had started. I went upstairs, went to the bathroom, let our dogs out, did like 2 other things, came back downstairs, same cutscene still going. So nap time might not be the best Kingdom Hearts 3 time.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it at nighttime when we have more than an hour. So what I did was I kind of do this every once in a while with my Xbox. I open up all my games and I start alphabetically with games I haven't played yet, and I decide if I want to delete them or not. So I play for as long as I feel is appropriate, and then I decide keep it or delete it. So, that's not to say I'll never play them again, but that's just kind of what I do. So I started alphabetically. The first game that came up for me was Crackdown 3. So I started Crackdown 3. It kind of gave me the old feels of Crackdown, which is it's supposed to, but not the way I remember Crackdown. So I played it a little bit. I kind of didn't love it, so I deleted it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I may revisit it at some point, but I just wasn't feeling it, and the internet is right. It looks like a 360 game, which was a turnoff for me, to be 100% honest. It looked bland. Everything was dark. There may be daytime, but I didn't get to it. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. But I have so many games to choose from. I just needed to make that decision. And then the next game was Marvel vs. Capcom. Is it Infinite? I didn't even look to tell what it's called. I think it's Infinite, right?
I think that's right, yeah.
So I can't get past the fact that this game was published with the way the character models look. I don't understand how that is even possible. And then the voice acting is terrible. I did the story mode first. I played it longer than I thought I would. The amount of loading screens in the story mode alone was maddening. If I had hair, I would have pulled it all out. So I played probably story mode for about 40 minutes and until I got tired of it. And I jumped into just a quick single player match. The game, as Kevin Austin jumped in on Discord, is incredibly unbalanced. It does not play well at all. The controls are laughable. I'm sorry to tear this game apart. I'm just very glad I didn't buy it when it came out because I was very excited about this game, and luckily they released a demo, and I remember playing the demo because the first 30 minutes of the demo was the first 30 minutes of the story mode in the game. So I'm like, I've already lived this. What am I doing? So that's deleted as well.
But hey, Mortal Kombat 11, not that far away.
I can't wait to play a well-balanced fighting game. And then I started Prey, but I didn't play it enough to give it an opinion. So here's where I'm standing and what I think I'm going to do. I've been listening to the Xbox Drive, so Sean Capri and Luke Galore have been talking about this, and Lucas Rose, or Heavy Metal Riff, as you know, also did this. I reinstalled Mass Effect Andromeda today, and I think I'm going to give it one last chance. I would like to finish the game.
Are you going to start completely over?
I'm going to start completely over because I know that they've changed things via patches and updates, and I want to rekindle my love of Mass Effect, and I know this isn't the game to do that, but I'm hoping it gives me enough feels to let me get past the clunky beginning and see if I can to get further into the game and really enjoy the storytelling aspect. And I really feel like, just like a lot of people that are BioWare fans, I kind of want to give them a fair chance with all the crap they've been going through recently with Anthem and the way that the PR has been handling things and the stories. So I'm going to show my love for them again and hope that it works out.
Man. The thing that's interesting is that we have obviously Mortal Kombat 11 coming out. We have then, for me, and we've talked about this on Discord, Days Gone is coming, which I'm still looking forward to. And then Rage 2 is coming.
Yes.
After that, I don't know what the next game that has a release date already, aside from some VR games, because there's some VR games that I'm excited about, but I know that's not a world that you have access to at this point.
Right.
I don't know what else I'm really excited for that has a release date post that.
That's a good thing. We need some time. Like, it's been a heavy start to this year. I mean, Borderlands 3, September 13th. Perfect.
Oh, that's true. That's probably the next game that I can think of.
That's a nice ways away.
Right. It was, and part of the reason that I started thinking about that is it's about the 1-ish year anniversary of God of War's release. And there was a video on the PlayStation blog from Sony Santa Monica saying, hey, thanks basically for 1 year. And it was a whole bunch of the people from the development side and talking about what it has meant to them to see the reception of God of War and all that. And it was a really nicely done, put together video. And it really made me want to replay God of War. So I think what I'm running into is I am just, even though Days Gone, Rage 2, the games I just mentioned, when you look at my list of games I've been playing, when I think of the games that I have that are saved on my consoles to play, I feel like I am completely burning out on open world games.
Yeah.
And that, as someone who primarily enjoys linear games, I'm going to get Days Gone, and I'm going to play Days Gone. The fact that they're telling me that it takes 30 hours to beat the story.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I'm going to play it, but I have
World War Z comes out tomorrow for us tomorrow.
What's that?
World War Z, the video game.
Oh, yeah.
Comes out tomorrow.
It's true.
You can get your zombie fix in before Days Gone.
I'm going to be playing Ghost Giant. That is what I'm going to be playing, is Ghost Giant. So, but yeah, it's interesting because I am definitely getting to the point where I really want another Uncharted or something like that. Something where I can sit down and get an awesome story in 12 hours. I really am craving that right now, and I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. So,
yeah, I hear you.
But hey, on a positive, some of the games I've been playing. I also have been playing The Division 2, working my way through that slowly but surely. Speaking of open world games that are melting my brain a little bit. I am level 24, I think, ish, 22, something like that. I'm not too far ahead of you. What I've actually started doing is when you go to the menu screen, on the right hand side, it has like a recommended activity or like a recommended thing for you to do. Oh,
really?
Yeah. I've just kind of started doing that. Whatever it recommends that I do, I go do that thing. And I go ahead and pick up and like we'll unlock safe houses and all that stuff along the way. But yeah, I still enjoy the shooting in the feel of that game. I enjoy the running aroundness of the game. I don't have any idea still what the story is for the most part. Like I kind of know what's going on. I can tell you none of the characters' names still really. Have you fought the sledgehammer dudes yet?
Maybe I fought a chainsaw guy. That was crazy.
They're yellow enemies that have sledgehammers, and they run at you and hit you with a sledgehammer. They suck. I'll say that about them. So, but now I'm kind of in that point, though, that happens in these games where I am getting, not regularly, but pretty regularly getting the yellow level gear. And now it's, okay, how do I balance what's better? And how do I know what's better?
Right.
And this is kind of becoming the point where I feel like playing the game is almost becoming a chore, that I know some people love figuring out what's going to work best. I wish there was a button I could hit that would just give me the optimal build. Here is the best build that you can make with all of the stuff that you have. And I'm sure a lot of people are probably yelling right now and saying how that is not the point of the game. That's not what you're supposed to do. It's about figuring out for your play style and all of these things. I just want you to tell me what the best thing is. Just tell me.
I think that's reasonable. I had frustrations with like Diablo 3 like that. Like you can build certain character builds for like a barbarian, like a lightning barbarian. I'm like, cool, tell me how to do that.
Right. And I think the thing that's hard is, when you start getting to this higher level gear, it has certain abilities combined with it, but then some of them will be like, hey, this works, but only if this stat level is above or below this level. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I have 6 pieces of each gear because I've been running around for a while and haven't been back anywhere to get rid of stuff. The number of combinations of builds I can make with that is ridiculous. How am I supposed to figure out, rather than just sitting there and being like, well, let me double check this math and this math. And then it's like, oh, but if you have sets, because then it gives you like the bonuses if you have 2 or 3 pieces from the same company equipped or manufacturer equipped, that changes things too then. So it's just, I just really want an optimize button. I really just want an optimize. And I know it's probably the easy way out, but that's just what I want. I really want it.
So you want easy mode in Division?
I do want easy mode in Division, and I think the easy mode is making the gear just work in the way I want it to. So I know I'm kind of belly aching right now, and there is a lot of good things, and I'm obviously still playing it, so I'm enjoying my time with it. I just wish they would make it easier for me to like it.
Right.
So, another thing I've been playing is still kind of putzing my way through Vampire or Vampire. Do we know how that's supposed to be pronounced?
I mean, it's probably supposed to be pronounced vampire.
Okay.
But I think it has like the Russian spelling of vampire.
Gotcha. So still working my way through Vampire. I still don't know if I really like it or really don't like it. There's parts of it that I like. I like the world a lot. I like the setting. I like those things. The things I don't like are the combat. Is very, you get locked into animations very rigidly, and it doesn't always feel right or good when I do things. I don't feel smooth while I'm doing things.
Is he still going on about his sister?
I've gotten to the point where the sister stuff isn't happening so much.
Oh,
anymore.
That's good. That's good to know.
The other thing, though, that I don't really like about it, and I think this is probably just a matter of dollars and budget and things like that, is you have this game that is very focused on immersion in this world and getting to know the characters and the citizens of this world. And there are things you can do. You can, you're a vampire, so you can choose whether or not to feed on these people. And the better you know them, the more beneficial their blood is to you, which is kind of messed up if you think about it. So the better you get to know them and the better you develop them or groom them, if you would. But the thing that's frustrating to me is that we're in this world that's supposed to be immersive, that you're supposed to get to know these characters. That's all about storytelling. And you'll walk into an area and there'll be 3 people to talk to, and you're trying to get one piece of information. And you'll go to person A and you'll get that piece of information. But then you'll go to person B and C, and your real only dialogue choices are to ask about that piece of information you already got.
Yeah.
And that's a little, and I get it, right? You're trying to make this world, this game, and you only have so many resources and so much budget. So I can understand that. that I'm sure is very challenging to make all of that seamless and to ensure the person's getting the information they need so they know where to go. 100% get it. That for me, though, is a little challenging as far from an immersion standpoint of, okay, I need to get to know this person, but my only dialogue options are to ask them questions I already know the answers to.
Yeah.
And not from talking to them, but from talking to other people. So I will probably still try to putz around with it a little bit. We'll see what happens. So I'm glad I didn't buy this game, but I am glad to have had the opportunity to play it thus far. We'll see it. So thank you, Xbox Game Pass. Another game I've been jumped back into a little bit with the partner was we played some more Overcooked 2. They announced that there's more DLC coming and there's a season pass coming for it.
Wow.
So she heard all about that and then wanted to get our Overcooked chops back up. So one thing that they have done since we last played, and I knew this was coming, but we hadn't played since they did it, they added a 4th star. So instead of 3-starring things, you can now 4-star things. Have you played this at all since they've added that?
I haven't played Overcooked at all.
Oh, okay. So 4th star. I don't know how they expect you to get this 4th star. I don't understand. I feel like I thought we were decent at this game. We 3-starred everything. They're like the 4 stars and some of the levels are like 5 times the score of the 3-star.
Wow.
And some of them are more than double what our best scores are. We were just saying, okay, let's really try to optimize this one. And we got to within 490 points, I think, of the 4th star. So we're still like 500 points off. And I had no idea what we could have done better. I have genuinely no idea what we could have done differently. No clue. So I'm sure something we could have done better. But for the good or the bad, my wife is very determined to at least get a 4-star on something. So that'll
I feel like
happen.
Kevin said that he got all the new stars.
Kevin got all the 4 stars?
It might have been him or Lucas. You might want to ask one of those guys. I feel like someone said that they got all the new stars.
Maybe my skills are just that diminished since we haven't played it in so long. So that could be, I guess. I mean, that was literally just one night of playing or an hour and a half of playing maybe. So, I'll double check. I will ask them and then I will feel bad about my skills. Final game then that I've been playing actually is in PSVR. And that is the game Falcon Age. This was one of the games that was shown in their state of play demo, or not demo, but presentation. It's a game that's kind of been talked about for a little bit for PSVR. It is available just regularly on PS4 as well, but I'm playing it in PSVR. So far, so good. You play as a Falcon, I don't want to say hunter, Falcon trainer, I guess would be the best way to put it. And I'm not very far in the game, probably only about 45 minutes to an hour in. But so far, so good. It's pretty cool. It's actually, you do some cool things. In VR, if you lift your arm up, your Falcon comes and lands on your hand, and then you can like rub its face. And if you put your hands together, your Falcon will stick his head in. Like, so if you're making like a little heart shape, your Falcon will stick his head in. A lot of cool, fun things. You can have it attack robots, and it can pick up robots and dive bomb them onto other robots. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So having a few issues, responsiveness isn't perfect as far as using the Move controllers. I am doing an odd thing for me in that I am using the Move controllers and using teleportation movement, which I very rarely do in VR games. I almost always use smooth movement, but I wanted to play this with the Move controllers and not with the DualShock and the aim controllers and an option for this game. So it works fine. I mean, it's very clearly designed with the idea of using the wands and using teleportation and all that good stuff in mind. So it plays into that well. But I plan to keep playing this. Honestly, I am really excited about the next month or so of VR. Really looking forward to Ghost Giant coming out this week and plan to play that as well. The reviews for that are excellent. So yeah, I'm excited actually. VR is actually the thing I am most excited about right now for the next 6 weeks or so. For the games that are coming out for PSVR. Looking forward to Blood and Truth, and yeah, really looking forward to playing more in that line. So once I finish Falcon Age, I'll give a full review of it, but that's kind of what I've been playing. Though I did have that conversation with you, Josh. We talked briefly about the trailer for the new Star Wars game that's coming out from the folks over at Respawn in November, and I talked about how I've never played Knights of the Old Republic. So since you are downloading and going back to Mass Effect Andromeda and trying to show BioWare some love, maybe I will download Knights of the Old Republic to show BioWare some love as well and go ahead and play that game since I've never played it. And I feel like I probably should play it at some point.
Yes. I mean, when you were talking about it, I was like, maybe I'll also go back and play it. But just because I shouldn't want to do. I don't know if it's an empathetic thing or what, but whenever people talk about doing things, I'm like, I want to do that too.
I do that all the time as well. Because when you talked about playing Mass Effect Andromeda again, I was immediately thinking, I could play Mass Effect Andromeda again. I didn't get all that far in it. I could do that. That's the thing I could do.
Yeah.
But
I want to do that too. I'm more of a follower than not a leader.
All right. So those are all of the things that we have been playing. And at this point, we're going to take a moment and jump to our topic of the show, which is an interview with Peter McPherson. So we're going to let you listen into that now. As mentioned at the top of the show, we are very lucky to be joined by special guest Peter McPherson, designer of the upcoming AEG release Tiny Town. Peter, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to be on.
Awesome. So, hey, as the off chance that our listeners maybe don't know who you are, can you give us just a little bit of rundown of who you are, kind of what you do, all that good stuff?
Sure. So I am a first-time game designer. Tiny Towns is my first published game, so obviously I am beyond excited about that. I also read quite a bit. I'm a book reviewer for Publishers Weekly and a freelance writer, so I probably fall on the more casual end of board gaming, but I play quite a bit of board games and video games as well.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. I'm probably going to ask you for book recommendations at the end, so just be aware. I'm gonna throw in that Audible, but I'll let you think about it while we go through this. So
Sounds good.
out there. Awesome. And I know Josh definitely has some questions he is chomping at the bit to get to. So Josh, why don't you take it away, good sir?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to start. So something that caught, and I could be totally missing the like AEG press bandwagon, but it seems to me like in at least the past 2 years, I don't think I've seen AEG promote a game as much as they've been like getting Tiny Towns out there. So they must be pretty happy with it. So I guess what I really want to start with is for you as a first time developer, what's the past like 6 months or so been like for you since I saw you at PAX Unplugged?
It's been really fantastic. They have made me feel super special, and yeah, like you said, it's been 6 months of lots of press from them, and I've been on a handful of podcasts. And of course, the whole time I was fearing that something was going to happen and they were going to decide my game wasn't going to become a reality after all. Now that we're, less than a month from release, I'm starting to let go of that fear, whatever weird place that comes from. So, but yeah, it's been a really exciting time. I can't believe it's not out quite yet, even still. So maybe if there hadn't been this 6 month lead up, I wouldn't be feeling quite that way, but I'm so excited for it actually to be in the hands of gamers and hitting tables all over the world.
Awesome. I saw that Becca Scott was that cameo you got from her holding the Tiny Towns game. And is it going to be done on the game? Do you know?
Yes, it is. I'm not sure how much I can reveal about that, but we've got some pretty cool plans with Becca Scott and the Geek and Sundry crew. Awesome.
That's great. I mean, they really picked up they picked up the torch from Will Wheaton and just kind of ran with it. So it's great to see all these games getting on there. So I'm happy to hear that. So let's just start with, let's continue with how did Tiny Towns come to be? And was there an inspiration for it? And if there was, what was it?
So there's a couple different points of inspiration. I think the main one is this simple word game that my dad and I like to play, especially when we're at a restaurant waiting for food. And we'll just play on napkins if we have pens lying around. Each player has a 5x5 grid, and you take turns naming a letter that both players have to put in their grid, and you make as many words as you can. So I wanted to make a board game that has the similar feeling of you take turns choosing some action that affects everybody, and at the end, you've both dealt with the same exact circumstance. So that was the initial seed of inspiration. And then the other one I would say was many years ago when I first played Minecraft, seeing the way that a few simple resources could be used to make hundreds of different items. I thought that was just the coolest system, and it's so simple, and I wanted to see that realized in a board game somehow. So that sort of played into the resource layouts of the different buildings in tiny towns.
Nice. Very cool. I'm going to skip my next question because Kyle actually asks it better later. So since we're a video game podcast, the first question is, are you a video gamer?
Yes, I'm a video gamer. I'm not a very good video gamer, but I game when I can. Lately, I've been playing a lot of Apex Legends.
Nice.
It's the first time I've gotten into a really popular title that's multiplayer. Like, I missed out on Fortnite and Overwatch. They weren't really my style. I like the aesthetic of Apex Legends a lot, and I'm a Titanfall fan, so I've been having a ton of fun with it. And I especially love that it's team oriented. I really enjoy playing with friends and strangers in that game.
Nice.
So,
yeah, Kyle and I are big fans of Apex Legends. We kind of fall right into that with pretty similar to you on the Fortnite aspect. We're not big Fortnite gamers.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's because we're old, but building walls.
Speak for yourself, man. Speak for yourself.
Any other games that you're playing besides Apex?
I've been playing a lot of Bad North by Raw Fury Games. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one.
Yeah.
So, it's that really simple RTS style is very appealing to me. It's so easy to get into, and then so incredibly brutally difficult. I've made it to one or two islands from the last island of the game, and I think I've teared up a couple of times when I lost a commander who was very special to me. So there's something about that game and seeing the unique images and faces and the voices of your commanders, and then watching one of them fall in battle is just traumatizing. I absolutely love the style of that game, and I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more recognition because I think it's really slick and brilliant.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then the question we ask, I think all of our developers we've had on, if you could develop a board game based on a video game IP, what would it be?
So this one's easy for me. It would be a game based on the Myst series, specifically Riven, which is actually the only game of the Myst series I've played, but I love the world of Riven. I think it's just fantastic world building. I've actually read the books based on the Myst series, which are really good. I mean, a lot better than you would expect, but also just really good novels on their own. So I think it is one of the coolest. It's one of my favorite fantasy worlds out there, and I would love to create a game with a similar that captivates that sense of mystery and discovery and exploration.
Nice.
Very cool. So one question that I'd like to ask that isn't on the list of questions, so I hope you can think on your feet. Favorite games, board games, video games, top 3, top 5. What are your favorite games?
Okay, favorite games. So I'll do board games first. And I'm going to do I'll do my hot 3, my favorite games right now, because all time is tricky.
Right, no, understandable.
Yeah. So I've been playing a lot of Flamme Rouge, which I really enjoy. It's like a deck builder, but it's not. It's like your deck just gets worse and worse, and it's a racing game about bicyclists, and it's a ton of fun. So Flamme Rouge is up there. Roll for the Galaxy is a classic that I play with my fiance a lot. It's so quick. It's not really simple, but once you know the rules, it's so easy, and then it's really thinky, and it's always a fun puzzle every time, and you're rolling gobs of colorful dice. And then for another one, I'm looking at my game shelf right now. Quacks of Quedlinburg I've been playing quite a lot of lately. It's got that sort of deck builder, pool builder feel, and I'm really bad at it. I don't know if you guys have played, but your potion can explode, and my potion explodes pretty much every time, and it just makes me want to play again because I love that push your luck element. As for video games, I already talked about Apex and Bad North, so I'll mention the Uncharted series, which is one of my favorite game series. I love the story. I love the gameplay. The visuals obviously are stunning. Just such a wonderful adventure series. I'm also a really big fan of Warhawk, which is a bit of a throwback on PS3.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's a multiplayer game which, for me, filled the void left by Battlefront 1 and 2 because it had that sort of arcadey feel, and there's vehicles. So back in high school and into college, my buddies and I would play a lot of that one online. And then another one, let's see. I really enjoyed both Inside and Limbo, which are by the same developer. I'm forgetting the name right now, but these super linear games have very simple puzzle solving, and yet they're really evocative and frustrating at times when you can't get past an obstacle. They have such narrow space to work in because it's a 2D platformer essentially, but it feels like both of them feel like AAA platformers, and they're a ton of fun and super spooky.
From the fine folks at Playdead, if I recall correctly.
Yes, Playdead.
That sounds right. The end of Inside, that, oh man, that was weird.
Yep. Yes, it was. Very memorable.
Okay, so, I was doing some digging and some research before knowing that we were going to have you on, and it looks like your Board Game Geek profile has a game called Temple of Knowledge credited as your first game, and it looks like it was a print and play, and there's a short little description of it, and that's about it. One person has it wishlisted, and I think that's about the extent of there's no picture of the game. There's not much else. What can you tell us about this game? What is Temple of Knowledge?
So Temple of Knowledge is a game I co-designed with my friend Kevin Root. We were working for an education technology company, and this was last summer of 2018, and I had, for a brief period, the dream job of designing board games for the classroom. So these were all print and play games that essentially had to fit on like 1 or 2 pieces of paper for the game components. Didn't use any dice or extra tools, and then the rules had to be roughly 1 page. And Temple of Knowledge was the first one we made with the idea that it was a game that could be played to study any subject, because rather than dice as a random element, you used flashcards. When you came up against an obstacle, you would answer a flashcard question about anything, and if you got it right, you passed the obstacle. If you got it wrong, something terrible would happen. The game itself was very much inspired by Matt Leacock's Forbidden series, so Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, those games. So it was cooperative, and you're exploring this map that grows and grows, and then the temple starts to collapse, and the tiles flip over, and the crumbling part of the temple sort of chases after you. So I don't totally consider it my first published game. Tiny Towns feels more like my first published game, since Temple of Knowledge never really got out there, but it was a lot of fun to work on, and I had a lot of fun working for that company, just churning out these print and play games, going to classrooms and watching students, watching their eyes light up when they really got the game and enjoyed it.
No, that's very awesome. I really like when there's those, niche or kind of odd things that show up on Board Game Geek, because it seems like they get this information from who knows where, and maybe you put it on there yourself. I have no idea, but I always just find it really, okay, awesome. Yeah. I just think it's really cool that you can like go find out these, really see like the history and like there's a progression of someone. Though your progression seems like almost a vertical straight line as far as where you're going here. But back to Tiny Towns a little bit. So does the box say 1 to 6 or 2 to 6?
It says 1 to 6 because there's a solo mode.
Okay, so. But AEG's website says 1 to unlimited can play Tiny Towns. Yes. So when are we going to have the Guinness World Record for most people playing the same instance of a board game? Is that part of the marketing at all? I feel like this is a missed opportunity.
It's a conversation that's been had. There's no plans of any type. But yeah, I saw the link you sent about that the current record for that, and that looks like those were several games of the same game going on at once, but not people playing one game. So
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it would involve contacting Guinness and saying, "Hey, can we make this new category?" Which I think that's a little more significant. Number of people playing the same, like they're competing against each other in the same game, rather than the most concurrent games of the same type going on. So we will see. But yes, you can play 1 to 6 out of the box, and then with each additional set of Tiny Towns, you can play 6 more players. So in theory, you could have a room of 300 people all playing the same exact game. It plays with rules slightly different than the normal mode. You use the Town Hall mode, where rather than players choosing what resources other players get, you have a deck of cards. But yes, in theory, it is 1 to infinity. So we'll see what happens.
That's
with
awesome.
that.
And for the dear listener who wants to know, the record is currently 3,148 people playing Shogi, but Shogi's a 2-player game. So these these were a whole bunch of people playing the 2-player game. And you're right. There is no, like, I looked long and hard trying to find is there like a record for the most number of people playing the same instance of a game? And that category doesn't exist. But on the DL, just so you know, there's currently no record holder for playing the most number of playing a board game simultaneously at multiple sites. That record is currently open.
That's good to know.
So there you go. That one has no record holder right now, in case you want to make that happen. So what has been, when you think about Tiny Towns, what is it you're most proud of in regards to this game?
So I think the aspect that I like the most about the design of Tiny Towns is the fact that the goals are very simple and short term. When you teach someone the game, you're using resources to make these different buildings, and it takes anywhere from 2 to like 6 resources is the usual range for constructing a building. So when you teach someone, they can really quickly take in the game and be like, okay, I'm going to try to make this. And then 3 turns from them, they made that thing. And at the end of the game, whether you did well or poorly, you get to look at your board, and that is your tiny town that you created. Even if it's not a very good tiny town, you made this thing. I love games that have that sense of a personal space. You are cultivating something, creating something. And I hope that I succeeded in creating lots of small, short-term goals players can strive toward, and then create this bigger goal of their little town in front of them.
Awesome. So what then, in general, when it comes to game, what is your favorite thing about designing games?
I think my favorite thing about designing games that I think makes it different from other forms of creating just about anything is that the designer can experience the game almost in the same way as other viewers, other players of the game. So if you make a painting or a movie, you can't look at that movie or painting the same way that regular viewers can. You just can't experience it. You're thinking too much the whole time about, I could have done this differently, or you think about the process behind it. But I can sit down and I can play Tiny Towns, and sure, I might be still thinking design things in my head about, should I have done this differently? But for the most part, I can actually play the game with other people. The same is true of a lot of video games, I think. And I think that's something pretty unique to game design in general, that the designer can sit down and join the rest of the people appreciating this thing.
Awesome. One of the things that I think is really different from the board game industry compared to the video game industry, and we obviously talk about both of them a lot on this podcast, is I've been moderately successful, I would say, in being able to talk to board game designers like yourself. Yeah. It's the thing that we can do. Trying to talk to video game designers, far more complicated and a little bit more challenging to make those things happen. The board game community seems very close-knit, that as a whole, it's a much flatter structure that you can talk to people. You can see them at conventions. You can play games with them. You can do all of these things. So having that lens as a designer, and when you look at the community as a whole, what do you think is the most challenging trend or situation that's going on in the tabletop community? And how do you think, as a designer, what is your role in addressing that? Or what is your role or impact that has on you when you think about interacting with the community, designing games, all of that stuff?
So I would say lately there have been a few instances of a game made about a certain culture with no involvement or representation from people of that culture. No one was asked about the accuracy of anything, or if the presentation was okay. And I don't feel like that's a question that was being asked 10 years ago when there were lots of Euro games with colonization themes. That's being pushed back against now. And I think that's great. I think that's a great trend that people are more aware of, hey, we should make sure the people who deserve to talk about this culture are from that culture, and, that everything's coming from a good place with good intentions. So I haven't really, this hasn't really affected me a lot personally, but it's something that I'm aware of. And I think it's great that other people are really becoming aware of that and really making their voices heard with this issue, because I think it's a very valid one.
Awesome. I think Josh and I think for better or for worse, we're, two middle-aged white dudes who do a podcast about board games. Not very many of us that exist at all. But I think we try to do a good job of trying to listen and amplify voices that can talk about experiences that we can't. So I do appreciate that thought and that perspective on that. That's great.
Yeah, and I think what you just said, listening and amplifying, is exactly what the best thing we can do to address that.
Absolutely. So,
and support the vocal people. I just want to add that there's a lot of people on social media that are very vocal about things like that. I can think of Suzanne, from Dice Tower, right away, and Bebo. Very vocal, and they need our support too, even though we are white men who have opinions on things. It's so nice to support the people pushing back as well.
Yeah. So one thing I think is always interesting to find out is specifically when it comes to game design, who are your biggest influences?
So I would say Jeff Engelstein is up there, not only as a designer who I really admire because I love the Space Cadets games, but also for his work on Ludology. He's the longest running host of Ludology. I know he's departing soon, which is it's very sad to see him go, but that was really like my classroom of game design. So I was listening to that podcast pretty much every day on my drive to and from the several jobs that I went through in the period leading up to Tiny Towns and everything. So I definitely owe him a big thanks for that amazing podcast. I look forward to the future of that podcast too, with Emma Larkins coming on. And then I would also say Matt Leacock, who I mentioned before, someone who I admire for his designs. I love the Pandemic series. I love Pandemic Legacy, even though I haven't quite finished season 1, but I'm getting there. I said Pandemic series a moment ago. I meant the Forbidden series. I've got all 3 games, and I love them a ton, especially the newest one, Forbidden Sky. But I also like his design philosophy and how much attention he pays to his blind playtesters. I know he has that super rigorous blind playtesting method where he has people film their sessions of Pandemic Legacy, and then he and Rob Davio watch the film at 1.5 speed or 2 times speed or something like that, and watch their reactions at certain moments. Obviously, that can be a challenging thing to do. Only once have I had the opportunity to watch a video of people playing one of my games and I wasn't there, but I think that's a really great way to approach design, looking for what is the user experience, how are they reacting to certain moments. So
one thing, and I didn't put your first published game coming out here, in about a month or so, right? About May 10th-ish?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, May 10th.
It's coming from AEG. How did you get your first game to be published by AEG? That's kind of like why, like being like a pinch hitter in the 7th game of the World Series and hitting a home run, isn't it?
I'm not a huge baseball fan, so I'm going to assume your reference makes sense.
That's a really good thing. Yeah.
So I got really tremendously lucky. I said before they've taken great care of me, but leading up to, I think I was pretty prepared. I went to PAX Unplugged 2017, and that was actually my first board game convention. So I've gotten lucky in a lot of aspects, and I think my route is not one that can necessarily be followed because I don't think I did things right so much as things just sort of fell into place. But I did my homework. I looked into the different companies I was pitching to. I pitched to 5 companies that weekend. And AEG was the last one, and the previous pitches had gone well. 2 of the companies actually took home a prototype. So I was content with the weekend. I was mostly just going to learn about the pitching process. And so by the time I came up to the AEG pitch, my spirits were really high and I was just feeling pumped up. And I was like, yeah, I got this. And they were very intense to pitch to. They asked a lot of questions. I would be pitching, and then suddenly they would ask me, like what sets us apart from other games, or, what games would you compare this to, which was a very basic question I should have been prepared for. I think I said Catan in the moment because I couldn't think it. I was like, Catan has resources where you build things, so Tiny Towns is nothing like Catan. But the pitch went well. They really liked it. I remember one of them said that they'd never seen anything like this before, which was a really cool thing to hear them say. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks after that they said they were interested in signing it. So, and the rest is a long history of development and tons of playtesting. But yeah, I think I was prepared, but I think I also got extremely lucky. There are so many people who have been at this for years and years and are still working on getting their first game signed. So I just hope that I can pay that back over time by supporting others around me and playtesting other people's games, and making sure everyone is getting the most of their opportunities. Just make sure other people's voices are heard by retweeting and stuff. But it's been fantastic. AEG has done a tremendous job with the game. I owe a big thanks to Josh Wood, who's the developer. He's also the designer of Cat Lady, so I've had a ton of fun working with him to make Tiny Towns the game that it is.
Very cool. Josh, I know we have a listener question. Do you want to jump into that, sir?
We do. So it's our super fan, our super listener, Splig, at Dopalicious on Twitter. He says, Peter, what's been the biggest hurdle getting Tiny Towns from idea to production? And is there any chance for a Westeros reskin?
So the biggest hurdle, I got to think about this one for a moment. It wasn't in the notes. I had time to prepare, but here I am, and I'm slightly stumped. Yep. I think the biggest hurdle was this was the first game that I really play tested extensively. I had other designs that I played like 10 times or so, and then I lost steam, or I just didn't like them very much, or maybe I wasn't good at handling criticism. I'm not sure, but I think I did struggle to listen to playtesters when I should have been listening to them throughout the design process. For example, there used to be shields in the game that would hide your board. So, Josh, you've played Tiny Towns. You know what a different experience it would be if you couldn't see. Yeah, and my intention with that was I didn't want it to be a really spiteful game. And people would always say, "Why are the shields here? I don't feel like these are necessary." And I was like, "No, you need them because I don't want this to be a mean game." And it took me the longest time to actually try the game without the shields and realize, first of all, no one's looking at each other's boards all that much. But second of all, when they do, it's an interesting interaction and it only adds to the game. It also makes it look a lot nicer on the table without everything being totally hidden. So I should have listened to that a long time ago. All advice from playtesters should always be, you should always take that with a grain of salt because you are the one who has the vision for the game and you know what's best for it. But if everyone keeps on saying the same thing, there's a reason they want to do this thing, or they want this thing to not be in the game. So everyone's experience is valid, and if enough people share the same experience, there's probably a reason to listen to that. So I hope now I've gotten better at listening to feedback, especially because feedback from playtesters is so tremendously valuable. So I would say that is the biggest design challenge, the biggest hurdle, and the biggest thing I've taken away from designing Tiny Towns. As for a Westeros retheme, I am just reading Game of Thrones for the first time now. I know I'm a little late to the game, and I am a big reader of fantasy. I love the fantasy genre, but somehow I haven't seen the show. I haven't seen like 5 minutes of the show, and I haven't read the books. So I love the idea of retheming Tiny Towns. I think there's tons of room for that. I'm not sure if there's a company, maybe FFG holds the rights to the Westeros and A Song of Ice and Fire universe, but I think that's a fantastic idea, and I'm going to read up on the books and figure out what buildings might go in a tiny Westeros.
How about we keep it within the same company? How about an Edge of Darkness version of Tiny Towns?
That's another one I actually haven't played.
I don't think it's out yet.
I had a chance to meet. I don't think so either. They had the Kickstarter not too long ago.
I'm definitely a backer.
I have met.
Yeah, I'm a backer. I think it's June or July this year.
Gotcha. That is a massive game. I've met John D. Clare. He's an awesome guy, so I'll have to bounce that idea off of him. That could be fun.
So something we should have started with. I think maybe we'll end with it. Can you explain to our listeners what Tiny Towns is and how
Sure.
How do you play it?
So in Tiny Towns, everyone is the mayor of their own tiny town, represented by a 4x4 grid, and you're going to be filling that grid with resources to construct different buildings. There's 7 buildings available in each game of Tiny Towns, but they'll change from one game to the next. And you construct them by arranging these 5 different colored resource cubes in specific patterns that match the building cards. So once you have a certain pattern, you take the resources off, and then a building goes in any one of the spaces where the resources were. But because you can only have one building or one resource cube per space, things get really crowded as you have multiple projects going on, and then you have room to breathe again as you complete those buildings. And the way you get those resources is by taking turns as the master builder, choosing one of the 5 resources which all players must receive. So at the end of the game, everyone has built their tiny towns using the exact same resources, and everyone has that little bit of influence over what goes on to everyone else's boards, and whoever has the most points at the end wins.
And not all builders are made equal, because I got all the same pieces as everyone else, and I did it terribly.
There's a learning curve for sure.
Yes. No, and that's what I really liked about it. And when you kind of hit on the shield thing and people like commenting like if you're at a point in the game where you're calling a resource to screw someone else over, you're only hurting yourself.
Right.
You really just want to pick the resource that you want. But I remember playing and it would be my turn and people were like, glass, big glass, please, big glass. I'm like, I don't need glass.
Yep.
Go away.
And it's a very different experience at high player counts than low player counts. In a 6-player game, it's really just chaos, and you're trying to survive the barrage of those 5 other resources you don't want going into your town.
Yeah.
And then with a 2-player game or 3-player game, it's very calculating, and you're much more aware of what other people need. You can look at their board and figure out what they're probably going to call.
I'm really excited about this game. I haven't had a chance to play it, but in watching videos and seeing people play the game, I like how everyone is basically always involved. There's really no downtime. You're always doing something. And I think especially in an age where complicated games and bigger games are becoming more the norm, and people, scared of analysis paralysis, are trying to figure out a new game to introduce friends to who are maybe aren't super into games, like something that is keeping folks engaged the entire time, that you're constantly wondering, what can I do next? Where's this going to go? Making plans, having them destroyed because people don't pick what you think they're going to pick. This is really fascinating. I'm really excited to get my hands on this and play this game. It looks really awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
So, Josh, as we get to the end of our time here, sir, any final thoughts, questions, things you'd like to ask? Burning desires you've always wanted to know in regards to tiny towns?
Oh, I don't know that I have a question. I did want to say next week, we have James from Vorpal Board on, and I saw the episode you were on, I don't know if it was an episode. I saw the video you did with him.
Yep.
So we don't know too much about Vorpal Board yet, but I think what excites me that we saw you guys doing that was that Kyle is very far away from me, but to have the potential to play Tiny Towns with Kyle, I think is very cool. I don't want to spoil for our listeners what we're going to be talking about, but when we talk about it next week, we'll make sure to tell them to check out the Tiny Towns video on that too. So that's all. I was excited to see that.
That was a lot of fun.
I was going to say, did they okay, maybe you can't go into this, but did they contact you about Vorpal Boards, or how did that all happen?
Yeah, I actually met James at Barden Baker, a local game cafe in Troy, New York. They do a designer night, so they encourage local designers to come and show their published games or prototypes or whatever. And he was there with a Vorpal board system, which is, he'll talk about it next week, but it's pretty eye-catching when you first see it. It's a really cool setup. So I started asking about that and how that works. And then he brought up the idea of having me on his Twitch stream to play Tiny Towns. So, he's a great guy.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. Any plugs you would like to give? Anything? Where can we get Tiny Towns? How can we get it? Where should we follow you? All of those wonderful things.
So Tiny Towns is actually going to be available early at some FLGSs on April 26th. That's the pre-release date. So 2 weeks ahead of the online and international release, some game stores have Tiny Towns early. So that is the soonest you can get it. And of course, I think it's awesome to always support your local game stores. And then May 10th is the international and online release for that. And I can be followed on Instagram and Twitter at Peter L. McPherson.
Awesome. And as I said at the top, you review books.
Yep.
I like reading books. I like to read. What books should I read?
So, what do you like?
I'm mostly sci-fi fantasy.
Okay. Then, if you haven't read it already, I'm going to plug my absolute favorite fantasy series of all time, The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Are you familiar?
I am familiar. I've not read it. I have the first one, but I haven't read it yet.
So it is a giant brick of a book, but Way of Kings is amazing. It might take a little while to get going, but you just have to remember that it's the introduction to a 10-book-long series that is divided into 2 smaller 5-book arcs. But I think Stormlight Archive is just a fantasy series for everybody. It is so grand and epic, but it's also so digestible. You can enjoy it at a surface level, and the plot is simple to follow, even though there's a large cast of characters. But then there's also this amazing depth to it. And when you go back and reread scenes from the first book ever, after having read all 3 that are released so far, it just blows your mind, the seeds that he planted early on. I think the characters are fantastic. The world building is so rich. And I've never read a more intense fantasy series. Even though the books are all 1,200 pages long, the second book in particular is just so action-packed and intense. So really, I think it's the most ambitious fantasy series going on right now, and it's a ton of fun.
Awesome. So that brought another question to mind. We had Jamie Stegmeyer on a couple of weeks ago, and he had done a video on YouTube a while ago about how he had tried to design a game for the Red Rising series, and he didn't feel good about it. And then when we were talking to him, apparently he has some more ideas. So he's kind of going back with that because he's already talked to the publisher and the right author and all that good stuff about it. But if you were to take a book series and try to make a board game, what book series would you try to tackle in board game form?
So I would probably say the Mortal Engines series by Philip Reeve, which was recently adapted into from a fan's perspective, pretty good movie with Peter Jackson sort of leading the project. As a movie, maybe it wasn't so good, but as a fan, I was happy. I think there's actually already a Mortal Engines board game in the works. There might be a BGG page that exists on that. But there's so many different aspects to that sort of steampunk, sort of post-apocalyptic world going on. It's filled with giant moving cities, which is ridiculous and super fun. There's airships. There's robots that live thousands of years constructed from the remains of dead people. Just so many weird, quirky world-building things. And I think it's a really fun, whimsical, but dark world I would love to explore in a board game.
Very cool. Josh, any final thoughts?
Have you read the Chaos Walking trilogy?
I have not. I'm actually not familiar with it. Who's the author of that one?
Patrick Ness.
Patrick Ness. Oh, I do know Patrick Ness, but I have not read that series.
That's probably, I only bring it up because you guys are talking your favorite book series and now I want to be included. It's probably my favorite book series that I have. And they're doing a film. They're doing a film that's coming out this year, maybe, with Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley. And Ben Mendelsohn. So I'm really excited about the potential of them making a good film out of a book series. But it was a trilogy they're making into one film. So I'm probably crazy for thinking it will be good.
Gotcha. I'll add that to my list. That sounds cool.
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Peter, anything else you wanted to say before we wrap this up?
No, nothing that comes to mind. But
awesome.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been a blast.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And dear listener, make sure you check out Tiny Towns potentially at your FLGS end of the month. Otherwise, May 10th, worldwide, all those other places you could potentially buy it. Peter, thank you so much again for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. And there was that interview with Peter. Thank you again to him for being on the show. Make sure you check out Tiny Towns. AEG is definitely pushing this game. And they're pretty smart about games, so I'm assuming it must be pretty darn good. And Josh, you've played it. Would you say it is pretty darn good? I
enjoyed my time with it, even though I did terribly at it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and he was super nice at AEG's big game night. So yeah, we had a lot of fun playing it. So it'll probably be something we add to the collection, and maybe even play if I can get it when it comes out at the local FLGS thing, because we're still doing Tabletop Day the 27th, even though for some reason they decided to change it last minute.
Yeah, that's really very odd. Do you know why that happened?
I don't know why, because every year it's been like the fourth weekend of April.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because Easter is so late this year.
Maybe.
But we're still doing it the 27th, so if I can go to my FLGS and get it that Friday, yeah, we'll definitely be playing some 6-player Tiny Towns.
Awesome. I actually let the partner know that the 27th weekend was Days Gone weekend. So I said, hey, this game comes out on Friday. All I'm doing that weekend is playing this game. And then she told me, okay, but we have this one thing we have to do. And I said, okay, we can do that one thing. And then I don't even remember what that one thing is, but there's something I have to go do.
Because it's not important to you. There's one thing.
I know, but then, and I keep remembering what it is, and then it just kind of goes away. But then she said, oh, and then there's also a person who's having a board game day. And I said, hey, this is now 2 things that I have to do. Not that I don't want to go play board games. Like, I definitely want to, but why can't they do it a different weekend? So anyway, hopefully I'll be having a ton of hours in the Days Gone that weekend. If not, I'll always be playing some board games. So that's pretty exciting. All right. Well, hey, this is clearly a gaming podcast, but we do want to give you one recommendation, suggestion, thing that we're into that is helping us live a well-rounded life. And this is more often than not going to be something, or more often than not, this will not be something game related. So Josh, what is something you're into currently that is helping you live that well-rounded life? So one of my things was going to be what you're going to talk about. So I'll just say I co-sign with Kyle's.
Okay. But speaking of being a follower, not a leader, so I was listening to our friendly podcast, Flux Deposed, and Jason Lucas often talk about graphic novels that they read. They've gotten back into reading. They go to the library, and you can too if you're listening. So this is going to be my well-rounded life. Is I have, if you know comics, you know long boxes. I have 4 or 5 long boxes full in my closet. So I dug them out and I pulled out all of my graphic novels from inside my long boxes. I also have some in my bookshelves, but I just pulled out the ones from the long boxes. And I took a picture and I sent them to the Flux Deposed Discord, and I was like, hey, pick a book and I will read it. Because Lucas says, he sets aside 30 minutes every night before he goes to bed to sit down and read one of the graphic novels he's picked up from the library. So I'm like, I can do that too. And it means I'll read more. So that's what I did. And that's what I'm going to recommend to everybody else. I started with, they voted. Lucas picked Terminator, and then Kevin picked Black Widow. I had a Black Widow Origins book. And I read the Terminator book last night. It was terrible, but I read it.
Nicely done.
They're not all created equal. And, you'll find that too. I used to do, I don't know if you've heard of Bento Box, the monthly subscription service. So I did their graphic novel boxes for a few months. So, I have 30 or more graphic novels that I may not have otherwise read or bought. I have some from conventions that I went to where I have them signed by the creators and gifts and all these different things. So that's what I recommend. If you don't have comics or graphic novels, go to your library and check them out, because we talked about books with Peter. A lot of people write off graphic novels because they're comic books, but there are a lot of good stories out there that sometimes get painted over with a superhero lens, or just a cartoon turns people off. So expand your reading horizons and read some graphic novels.
I agree and co-sign on yours as well. Hey, real quick, have you read or heard of The Sculptor?
I haven't.
Yes, I would recommend that one. It is a lengthier graphic novel, 496 pages.
Oh.
So it actually typically comes as a hardcover book, but it's most definitely a graphic novel. Excellent. Very, very, very good. Probably one of my more favorite graphic novels.
Scott McCloud?
Scott McCloud, indeed.
Okay.
So what I'm going to talk about is one of those things that is, it is in the, can't really escape it right now. And I'm going to go ahead and recommend you should watch Game of Thrones. And now there's going to be two people. Some people who are already watching Game of Thrones and being like, heck yeah, you should watch Game of Thrones. And some people who are going to say, hey, I don't like Game of Thrones. I'm never going to watch that. And if that's the way you feel, I can appreciate that. But the reason I recommend it is because I think, and I could be wrong, I do think, though, this is going to be the last time we have a show like this. In the sense that every Sunday, something like 18 million people or whatever watch the first episode. That's what people do, is they watch Game of Thrones. They go to work the next day. They talk about it. And then we all wait for a week to watch the next episode. And we have conversations like you and I were earlier about what about this and what about that and how could this be and what about the theorizing for this. And I don't know that is really going to exist much more in the future. I don't, with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, I don't know if there's going to be another show that is going to be able to do this thing that Game of Thrones has been able to do. And I think it's just kind of cool and kind of fun to be in on this and to have this experience with everyone. So that is more the reason I recommend it than anything, is that it's a good show. And I appreciate it. I know some people didn't like this first episode of the new season, the final season. I enjoyed it. My favorite thing about Game of Thrones has always been people talking in rooms. That is the thing I like, which I know sounds really odd, right? But that's what I like about it. I like Game of Thrones when it's people talking in rooms. That's the thing I like.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode had that in spades, absolute spades. So Game of Thrones, like I said, I think it is overall a quality series. But I think also just the cultural touchstone that this is right now, I don't know that we're going to see something like this again. So it's kind of, it might be the last time you get a chance to be part of something like this. So I would encourage you to, it'd be hard to catch up now. There's like 68 episodes you'd have to watch before Sunday. But, maybe if you catch up over the next few weeks, you could get there to join the finale with all of us. So, hey, that's what I am recommending.
Good recommendation.
Awesome. All right. So again, a big thank you to Peter McPherson for joining us this week. Again, look for Tiny Towns. It's going to be available May 10th everywhere. You can even pre-order on places like Amazon and Cool Stuff, but it should be at some select friendly local game stores at the end of April as an opportunity potentially as well. So make sure you take a look out for that. Josh, what do you say we wrap this show up?
Thanks for joining us, everyone. In addition to finding us on Twitter and Instagram at BoardWithVG, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BoardWithVG. So feel free to give us a 5-star rating over there. Also, if you want to communicate in the more long form, or you're not feeling social media, feel free to email us at boardwithvg@gmail.com. We tag all of our stuff on social media with #BoardWithVG, and so should you, so we can see what you're up to. Whatever podcast service you're listening to us on, we encourage you to give us that stellar rating. That is whether you're downloading us from the PSVG feed, the Dice Tower Network feed, or our standalone Board with Video Games feed. You can indeed find me on PlayStation Network and Xbox Live at Why So Serious. That's SIRRIUS. And maybe we'll try to get a community game night going soon again.
I was just thinking about that. We should probably do that.
Yeah, Kyle and I will think of something, and we'll let you know. Kyle, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. Again, big thank you to Peter McPherson for being here. We really appreciate it. And as a pretty much final update for Metaspring, the Days Gone embargo lifts the morning of the 25th, which means that we will wrap up Metaspring and announce the winner on the Thursday, May 2nd show. And then we'll take a break. We're not going to do a Meta Summer, but then Meta's Fall will return in the fall of 2019, bigger and better than ever, because I have ideas about how to make this contest even better. And it's going to be great. But again, look for that Metaspring final episode with revealing the winner, all that good stuff on Thursday, May 2nd, because then, like I said, the embargo for Days Gone is the 25th. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on the social media, because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. And remember, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.